We don't have anything. You know, let me give you an example. If you'll discipline yourself as a preacher when you're young, and I'm talking to myself here, this is a great practice, to use only illustrations that are biblical. Illustrations that come from the lives of people in the Bible. That's one of the things I've noticed about the older preaching. They will mention men from the Bible, lives, illustrations that actually come out of Scripture. And what could be better than to use illustrations from Scripture? And it disciplines you to know the Scripture. So even though you need to study the Bible, like do exegesis of the book of Romans and work your way through Colossians and study Proverbs and all these different things, it is very healthy to be reading through the Bible, preferably a couple of times a year, just reading it. Now that's not a substitute for hard study, but the life practice of reading through the Bible. Another thing is prayer. The discipline of prayer, which also includes the discipline of worship. Listen, I don't care how zealous you are. If you don't discipline yourself to private worship, you'll forget about it. You'll pray, you'll do intercession, you may even read the Bible, but actually getting down on your knees and worshiping. Disciplining ourselves to prayer, disciplining ourselves to, well, you know, if my heart's really not in it, I'm not going to do it. Boy, that's the lamest excuse I've ever heard in my life. God never tells you to obey Him only if your heart's in it. He tells you to obey Him. Disciplining yourself in Scripture, in prayer. But it's not just disciplining yourself with what you put into your body, what you put into your mind and heart. It's disciplining yourself with what you don't put into your mind. Now listen to me. You get 16 ounces of clear water and put 1 ounce of sewer in it. And tell me whether or not you're going to drink it. So you can be reading the Bible for 4 hours and then go watch some program on television. Congratulations, you're contaminated. Do you see that? Now, with those of you who are ministers, let me tell you something. One of your greatest enemies is going to be media. Please understand this. Every kind of media. Anything that can distract you is going to be your enemy. Why? Because ministers, their lives are basically dealing with problems, fighting fights, the mental fatigue, the worry, everything else, the difficulty of the ministry will cause you to want to sit in front of something and veg out, whether it is watching a television program or playing solitaire on the computer. You'll want to just veg out. Now that doesn't mean you shouldn't enjoy a computer. It doesn't mean you can't do some of these things. You have to be very careful. And if you can't control it, then if your right eye offend thee, pluck it out. And if your right hand offend thee, cut it off. Don't get trapped. Our hope is not that we cut ourselves off from everything in the media, but if we can't be mature and disciplined enough to handle these things, then it is better that we cut ourselves off. You will want eventually to sit in front of a TV and just veg out. Why? You're tired of thinking. You're tired of everybody's problems. And you're tired of being a part of a group that is quickly becoming the least respected group of men on the planet. And you'll want to forget about who you are and what you do, and eventually you'll get involved in role-playing. It's why I've known pastors who love to read, this is real, love to read comic strips. I mean, Batman and Superman and watch those kind of movies, role-playing, just wanting to escape from what they were. You see that? And so be very careful, not just with putting in good stuff, but not allowing bad stuff to come in. Okay? Now, discipline yourself. Now here's another thing, guys. I still am careful about this. Choose the people very carefully that you choose to be around. Even at 47 years old, even though I don't look anywhere near that old, even at 47 years old, I want to choose the people very carefully that I'm around. Why? Because I can be swayed. I can be swayed. And there is a unique kind of, the people that are around me, and all of us have people around us. The people who are around me are very different in many different ways. And I can see that God has orchestrated the people He's put around me, people that live in this area with me, people who are friends of mine only through telephone, but they're so very different that what do? They keep, it's like a checks and balance system. They keep me from running in wrong directions and going to extremes. And it's very important. And not just to be around people just like you. Because then you get in a little holy club and it's you and your buddies against the world. You're 23 years old and you and your 6 friends have figured out what's wrong with Christianity. You see, be very careful. The younger you are, the more you should be around older men. Very helpful. And men who are different. And when we were in the jungle, Ben Barry and I were laughing because Nathan Barry, his dad, if you say, "How are you doing?" he goes, "Blessed." And if you ask me, "How you doing, Brother Paul?" "Cursed and about to die." I'm always looking. My wife calls me Eeyore. So I'm around Mr. Happiness over here. So I'm blessed. And I love walking in his office. "How you doing, Dr. Barry?" "Blessed." "How you doing, Paul?" "Cursed." Now again, I'm just kidding, okay, if you're watching this film. But the thing about it is, God brings different, because I'll get letters. "Brother Paul, why are you proclaiming these things over yourself? Don't you know you're creating this ambiance of curse?" No, God's bigger than that. But here's the thing. God puts different people in your life to pull you and to contradict your personality. You see. So be disciplined about the people you're around. It's very important. Okay? Well, let's go on from here. He says, "For bodily discipline is only of little profit." Now, it is only of little profit. But let me say something. It's profitable. I was listening to, now I don't have the facts exactly straight. I can't remember back that far. But I remember when I was in seminary at Southwestern Theological Seminary, they built a gym and all kinds of stuff. Students said, "Well, why are they spending so much money to build this gym?" And it wasn't an extravagant gym. It was just a gym. And for all those super spiritual students, here was the answer. Because most of you guys, when you get out, you overeat all the time, you're fat, you don't do anything, and 65% of the no, it was even more than that, I think, of the ministers are all dying of heart attacks. That's why we're building this gym. And they even had to put a thing in there that if you were overweight at Southwestern, and I don't mean just, chunky, I'm talking about headed toward obese, you were put on probation. And you could be asked to leave the school if you didn't straighten this out. Why? Because ministers are dying like flies. My wife used to tell me, she was so mean. It's the meanest woman in the world. She was at a Bible college, Southern Baptist Bible College, and she was like a waiter or whatever when they'd have these conferences and stuff, and she'd work in the cafeteria. That was her job. And she used to say, and sometimes my wife, she's just pretty straightforward. She said, those big old fat pastors had come waddling in there. And she goes, I'd always take the biggest piece of pie and